I've been reading a book lately. I shouldn't say reading. I've actually been listening to it on audiobooks called The God Delusion by an author, Richard Dawkins. He's well known as a pretty established apologist arguing against religion as a whole, not just Christianity, but basically all of it. And I wanted to listen to it in order to challenge my beliefs and to see if they still hold up to scrutiny by someone as established and reputable as him and his work. So I want to, with that, go back a little bit further and start with why I became a Christian and how and kind of my journey, and then progress a little bit more from there. I was raised in the church by my mom. She was Christian. Well, she started as a Catholic and then became a Protestant. So we kind of were part of that transition. But as kids, she brought us to church. Now, that being said, I did not automatically accept the things I was taught there, partially because I had an atheist father. My dad was pretty avowed atheist. He mostly made fun of my mom for going to church and the things she did at church. So because of that, it helped me, it hurt me in some ways. It made it harder for me to accept a faith, to become a Christian, and it helped me because I think it encouraged me, besides just having a personality or a propensity to do this, to question things, especially authority, unfortunately in some cases, but he, I think, helped support the idea of questioning the things I was being taught. So while I was raised in the church, I also was, to some extent, skeptical. I don't like the idea of having a faith because, and I know it's a common statement, but the problem with it is people use that word as a way to describe what you believe without really having logic to support it. So people say you've got to just have faith. You know, that's part of becoming a Christian, or any religion really, is you have to have faith, to accept blindly some aspects of it. So I prefer the term beliefs because then belief system is something that seems to me to have some underlying logic to it. So I'm going to choose beliefs versus faith. And that is the foundation of my beliefs, is logic. I started going to community college after high school. My grades weren't very good in high school, and but I did have good test scores, so I got accepted into the honors program at Valencia Community College in Orlando. And it's there that I took a class, Philosophy 101, and was introduced to an author called Bertrand Russell. In 1928, he wrote an article called What is the Soul? And that article was presented to us in this class. There can be no reason for supporting that either a piece of mind or a piece of matter is immortal. The sun is supposed to be losing matter at the rate of 1,000,000 tons per minute. The most essential characteristic of mind is memory, and there is no reason whatsoever to suppose that the memory associated with a given person survives that person's death. Indeed, there is every reason to think the opposite, for memory is clearly connected with a certain kind of brain structure, and since this structure decays at death, there is every reason to suppose that memory must also cease. Basically, what he's saying is, your brain is made out of chemical, electrical, material properties, and once you die, those properties cease to function. Therefore, you have no memory, you have no thoughts. Eventually, you'll have no brain after it decays, and you're dead. There is nothing after that. You're just dead. And I thought it was a pretty sound argument, and I kind of became not an atheist, but agnostic after that. I didn't really know what I believed. I kind of agreed with his argument. It made sense to me, and I decided to drift a little bit away from my church and thoughts and faith and belief system for a time. After that, though, I had, during some different phases of my life, a lot of time alone to think and process things, and I sort of began to develop new reasons possibly with God's help, to understand and believe again in Christianity. That was the beginning or the spark of coming back to church. But even to this day, I still want to and choose to and enjoy challenging what I believe. And a friend of mine sent me the book, Letter to a Christian Nation by Sam Harris. And this book makes some points against Christianity. And I read it and I disagreed with it. I think almost every point he made, I had a counterpoint to. And I took notes and wrote disagreements with it, and it didn't affect what I believe. And I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I'm currently reading The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins. I think this book is much more convincing. I think he makes better points. I think he makes more sound arguments and addresses things that are kind of central to Christian beliefs, especially in regards to creationism. So he does a great job. I'm enjoying it. I think he's well-spoken, and I think he makes some good points. That being said, I still disagree with him. I think he's got still room to counter-argue, and not only do I have reason to disagree with his points, maybe not all of them, but many of them, I still, none of his points address the reasons why I believe in a Christian faith or Christian belief system. So the next step for me, I think, is going to be, after I finish this book, Origin of the Species by Charles Darwin. It's a classic. I've never read it. In the spirit of a court of law, there are different varying degrees of evidence. Ideally, if you're going to go to court and you're going to present a case, you want to have concrete, conclusive evidence or proof. Okay, something physical, something material, something completely undeniable proof. I don't have that for my beliefs in God, okay? But that being said, I do have one of the next degrees of evidence. The one beneath that is clear and convincing evidence. And the definition of that is substantially more likely than not to be true. There's also a category of substantial evidence. And that states that there's enough evidence that a reasonable mind could accept as adequate to support a particular conclusion. All right, and the last one on my list is sufficient evidence. That is evidence that is sufficient enough to satisfy an unprejudiced mind. Here are the things I'm going to talk about, and I'm not going to do it all in this video because I've already taken way too long in this, and thanks for hanging in there. I know it's kind of long, but I'm going to talk about in the next following videos these categories: existence of the human soul, existence of God, presence of the spiritual realm, acceptance and embracing of the Bible, life of Jesus and person of Jesus, occurrence of miracles, and evidence of the afterlife. And these are what I plan to present for sufficient evidence for Christianity.